over the last couple of days, I've been trying to do a video. Well, I've done it like 3 times, but every time I do it, I look at it and I think, oh, I know this ain't going to stay up. You know, it's unfortunate that it is that way, that you cannot say what you want to say and expect it to be tolerated. But I had a thought the other day, or a suspicion. You know, I think it's pretty well accepted now that this virus was an accidental release from a lab in China. I think people are coming to see that. Although, I mean, a lot of people are still denying this, but I'm sure this was a man-made, concocted thing, dreamed up, and Fauci had a lot to do with it. But they like to tinker with that stuff. You know, in theory, as well, they're claiming that this was being done so they'd have an upper hand on this if this should happen, you know. Well, it wouldn't happen, except they made this and turned it loose, accidentally. But the more I think of it, and the more they push this vaccination stuff, I'm getting into risky territory here, but the more that happens, the more I think this doesn't seem all that accidental. You know, I mean, if it was accidental, you know, which according to them is like the worst case scenario, boy, they really jumped on it. You know, this was playing right into their hands. This is really what they've been talking about for quite some time, to try to, you know, get the population down, get the population under control. They claim not, you know, I mean, they absolutely deny this and claim to be greatly insulted that you should even bring this up. But if it was an accident, it was certainly convenient for them, almost to the point where I begin to doubt the accidental nature of this. You know, because this was ideal for their purposes. So, like I say, I have my doubts. You know, but boy, they don't want to hear that. But there's just too many coincidences. I mean, this just lined up so perfectly. So either, if it was an accident, it was extremely convenient for them and played right into their hands. But all the other stuff I see going on makes me think there aren't a lot of things going on here that are really accidental. I mean, most of the stuff that comes up is actually being done on purpose. You know, in a random, scattered, crazy sort of way. You know, you always look thinking there's got to be some justification for some of this stuff, but there really isn't. I'm getting a little suspicious. You know, of course, I'm always suspicious, but even, like, say now, when they're pushing this vaccine stuff, and they keep giving you these numbers, if there's one thing I've learned, is you don't trust any of the numbers that they put out. They play with these numbers. It's really incredible. You know, like, the amount of people who tested positive. Well, then they find out, oh yeah, these tests are horribly inaccurate. They test them again. Whoop, another positive. Whoop, yep, another case. You know, they and that way they build up their numbers. And even like now, where they're having side effects from this marvelously safe and effective vaccine, doesn't appear to be that safe, and certainly isn't very effective. I mean, you can't say something's effective if you if you act the way they act with this thing. You know that. You know, like the other day, I heard. I can't remember who it was. One of these politicians in the saying, you know, like with the shortages now, there'd be no problem if they got 100% vaccination rate, the shortages would magically disappear. I don't see that. Well, unless you kill off half the population, well, I suppose then the shortages kind of would go down. But I really don't trust them at all. Well, and a lot of people don't trust them. They do polls, and it comes out that a lot of people don't trust them, but then they'll come back with a different poll that says, oh, yes, everything's just wonderful and marvelous. But it isn't. It is really, really going to hell really quickly. I mean, it's picking up speed. I think a lot of people, you know, I talk to some people and they think, oh, everything is going to work out just fine. I can't see that happening. I can't see any scenario where this will suddenly turn around. That can't happen. So I don't think they're going to have those opportunities to build back better. I think they completely wrecked everything to the point of being completely dysfunctional. And they have no idea what they're doing. The level of competence in this is just astounding. You know, but I don't think people are taking this seriously enough. I think, you know, there are some people that are worried about this, but there are an awful lot of people that are just going along saying, oh, it'll all work out. And then they have the bunch that are relying on religion that, oh, yeah, you know, this is going to pull us through. You know, God wouldn't let this happen to us. I don't think you can count on that. You know, go ahead if that makes you feel more comfortable, but it isn't going to, in the end, you got to take matters into your own hands. And it's getting to that point. I mean, honestly, it's getting to that point. You know, a lot of people are really getting fed up with this. You don't really see a lot of it if you're watching the news, and it's frightening how many people actually watch mainstream media news, and that's where they form their impressions from. You know, so they don't realize what actually is going on worldwide. I mean, it isn't just this country. You know, this stuff has been going on in other countries for some time, but we've always been able to kind of hold that back. But we're going to really get hit hard now. And we're, you know, like the last holdout. So when we go down, everybody is just going to crumble. Well, you know, I guess it's okay. Nothing new about it, but I would warn you, you know, that you better be paying a lot more attention. You know, when people always talking, oh, you know, get stocked up on beans and rice, you know, okay. Well, I think I'll go home, and I got a can of tomatoes. But, you know, you got to get, you know, you should always have a fallback position, and a lot of people now, they have no fallback ability whatsoever. You know, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They may got a few canned goods on hand, but if they don't get to the store at least once a week, they're done. And all of a sudden, you're going to go to the store and you weren't going to find anything. And where do you go from there? it's worrisome. I mean, I don't think a lot of people, well, I know a lot of people who aren't really taking this seriously, but have never really thought that this could fall apart. You know what I mean? They just thought, oh, it's just going to go on and on. But it can really fall apart, and it isn't like it's a, you know, it's been a slow creeping thing, and that's why people have been kind of complacent. You know, they've been saying, oh, you know, it's getting a little worse, a little worse, a little worse. But there's a tipping point in there, and I think we've reached that tipping point where things are going to go really bad. Like in a week or two, things could just completely collapse. And we're really set up for that now. So it could happen. So I'm hope people, I'm concerned, I'm hope other people are getting very concerned. You can't count on our government. You never could, but especially now because, like I say, nothing but incompetence there. So don't look for them for help. You're going to have to be counting on, you know, friends and neighbors, kind of more so than the government, because they will let you down. Every time they will let you down, and they're obsessed with this vaccination thing right now. I mean, they aren't going to let that go. But the idea that, oh yeah, if you could just get everybody vaccinated, everything would be fine. It ain't going to happen. I think you're at the limit of vaccination now, and I don't think you're going to get anybody more, and I think you're actually going backwards at this point, particularly when they're letting in all of these people, unvaccinated people, untested people. They have no idea what they're letting in. I think we got a disaster brewing of just epic proportions. Well, it'll make life interesting. But I really hope people are, you know, not counting on the beans and rice to get them through, or the religion. But boy, I see a lot of people falling back on that, and that, I guess, is the thing that happens. You know, when times start getting tough, they will fall back on that. But you got to learn to rely on yourself. It worries me a little. I mean, like I say, I'll go along as I always have. But I can see there will be a lot of suffering to come for a lot of people. But, you know, it's, you know, and everybody, all these years they've been saying, oh no, that's all just conspiracy theories, and then all this shit comes true, you know. Well, winter's coming up and I got a can of them tomatoes anyway, so what I thought I should do, you know, try to do a video. We'll see if this one stays up. I probably said something I shouldn't have said in there, I'm sure. And they're really touchy. It's funny, but you know, the touchiness kind of comes and goes. I mean, they get a little pushback for being too strict about what people say, because a lot of times what people say, you know, like it used to be that if you even brought up the idea that this was an accidental release from a lab, oh no, they'd shut you down. Well, I think that's gotten to be a little more mainstream now, a little more accepted, so they can get by with that. But they're really on the vaccination thing, they're really pushing now. But doubt the numbers. When the numbers are coming from your government, particularly this administration, really doubt the numbers. And look behind things, look the reasoning behind things. Oh, I think you're in for a rough road though.